Imagine you're standing in a field of tall, thick grass. If you walk the exact same route through that field every single day, eventually you wear down the blades and carve a deep dirt path. That path is exactly how human habits are formed in the brain. Over time, we walk those internal paths so often that they become automatic. In fact, research shows that by the time we reach age 35, roughly 95% of who we are is a completely subconscious set of programmed behaviors, reactions, and emotions. You probably know what that old path looks like. You wake up, you immediately reach for your smartphone, and within seconds you are scrolling through messages or thinking about your problems. Before your feet even hit the floor, your body is defaulting to a state of stress or complaint. Researcher and author Dr. Joe Dispenza has spent years studying the biological cost of these loops. He's observed that when we constantly rehearse stressful problems, our brains keep the body in an emergency survival mode. Over years, this flood of stress chemicals knocks our internal systems out of balance, and that persistent state of imbalance is what eventually triggers physical disease. But that brings up a fascinating question. If a repetitive loop of toxic thoughts can push the body into a state of illness, could a deliberate loop of positive thoughts facilitate physical healing? The answer is yes. But as long as we live on that subconscious autopilot, we are allowing our familiar past to dictate a highly predictable and often unhealthy future. So let's say you decide to change. You resolve to stop getting angry at minor inconveniences, or you commit to a new healthy routine. Trying to make that choice is the equivalent of stepping off that smooth, clear dirt path and forcing your way through the tall, uncut grass. It is completely normal for this to feel uncomfortable. Your brain has a natural resistance to the tall grass. It wants to urge you back onto the old dirt path of frustration or anxiety, simply because that familiar route requires much less biological energy to travel. But there is a biological principle called neuroplasticity. Nerve cells that fire together wire together. If you choose to walk that new, difficult route repeatedly, you eventually flatten the tall grass and create a solid new trail. And equally important, when previous neural connections are no longer used, they prune apart. The grass grows back over the old habit. Nobel Prize-winning researcher Eric Kandel discovered that when we take in new information and truly pay attention, we can double the number of active connections in our brain in as little as an hour. True change requires you to accept the temporary discomfort of wandering into the unknown grass. That friction you feel isn't failure. It is the physical sensation of rewiring your biology. There is one major hurdle. Most of us wait for the external world to change before we allow ourselves to feel better. We think we have to wait for the wealth to feel successful, or wait for the healing to feel gratitude. To rewire the brain, we have to reverse that order entirely. You have to learn to feel the elevated emotion of your desired future right now, before the external event has actually happened. This connection between mind and body is backed by quantitative data. At institutions like UC San Diego, clinical research teams are tracking real-time biological shifts in people who practice elevating their emotional states, observing how their heart rates and brainwaves stabilize. When you generate the emotions of your future in the present moment, your body is so objective, it doesn't know the difference between the real-life experience and what you are imagining. It accepts the emotional signal as reality, and the healing begins. So, how do we actually do this? You can start carving a new mental path tomorrow morning using a simple 4-step daily protocol. Step 1 is the morning rule. When you wake up, look at your phone and do not touch it for the first 10 minutes. You have to prevent those outside alerts from instantly triggering your old stress programs. In those first few minutes after waking, your brainwaves are transitioning out of a deep sleep state. During this window, your subconscious operating system is highly vulnerable. You can either let it default to the old habits, or you can write a new program. That brings us to step 2, mental rehearsal. Instead of reaching for a screen, close your eyes. Actively visualize how you want to behave today. Picture a stressful situation you might face, and practice making a calm, clear choice instead. Studies on mental rehearsal show that when you visualize a movement or reaction with total focus, The brain installs the actual neurological hardware for that behavior. To your nervous system, the thought is so vivid, it creates the exact physical circuits as the real experience. By controlling your mental state first thing in the morning, you put yourself in the driver's seat. You stop your environment from controlling your biological baseline. Step 3 requires you to stay awake at the wheel. Throughout the day, you have to practice catching your own thoughts. You become an active monitor of your own mind. The moment you notice a familiar negative thought or a complaint arising, consciously halt it. Tell yourself no. You are actively refusing to walk down that old mental path. And finally, step 4, feel it now. Once you stop the negative loop, intentionally generate the feelings of the life you want right in the present moment. Bring up a feeling of joy, care, or deep appreciation. Gratitude carries a very specific chemical signature. In our daily lives, we naturally say thank you only after something good has happened. By choosing to feel that deep sense of thanks right now, you are using an emotional signal to tell your body that the healing or success you're seeking has already occurred. Your biology responds to that feeling by shifting out of survival mode and into a state of repair. Changing our habits is rarely easy, and the tall grass can be tough to navigate. But by practicing these 4 steps daily, you stop acting out the script of your past, and you take active control in creating a new, healthy reality.